also wrote, "On average, in 1965, an American CEO earned 20 times what a worker did. By 2013, on average, the number was 296 times." The incomes of many Western middle-class populations have also stagnated in recent decades. This is undeniable, but this trend can be reversed. Western leaders need to do a shrewd recalculation of the new global economic order and look for new opportunities for Western workers. As Machiavelli famously warned, "There is nothing more difficult than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things." The good news for the West is that the global economic pie is not shrinking. In fact, it is growing steadily, and will probably continue growing with some significant changes. Until recently, much of global growth came from G7 economies, not the E7 economies. This has reversed sharply in the past 2 decades. In 2015, for example, the G7 contributed 31.5% and the E7 36.3% of global growth. The G7 economies are the Group of 7: Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK and the US. The E7 economies are the Emerging 7: China, India, Brazil, Mexico, Russia, Indonesia and Turkey. In short, the West has hitherto provided the locomotive driving global economic growth, and the rest hitched their wagons to the train. China's explosive growth in recent decades was fueled by exports to America. Now, the rest are providing the locomotive, and Western societies can deliver economic growth to their populations by hitching their wagons to the rest. This sounds simple in theory. In practice, it could be difficult. The West has been at the forefront of world history for almost 200 years. Now it has to learn to share, even abandon that position, and adapt to a world it can no longer dominate. Can this be done? So far, the West has failed to produce a coherent and competitive global strategy to deal with the new situation. Instead, it's flailing about, attacking Iraq, bombing Syria, sanctioning Russia and baiting China. All this adds to a sense of global turbulence. The key message of this book is that there is a better option for the West, helped by analysis and advice, offered in friendship from the rest. A cold, careful and comprehensive calculation of how Western interests have changed, coupled with ruthless realism, indeed a dose of Machiavelli, is what the West needs. However, Machiavelli remains also one of the most misunderstood figures of our time. Many in the West regard Machiavelli as the embodiment of evil. Leo Strauss, the famous American political scientist of the 1950s, called him a teacher of evil. In fact, as the great British philosopher Isaiah Berlin reminded us in his seminal essay, The Question of Machiavelli, Machiavelli's values are not instrumental but moral and ultimate, and he calls for great sacrifices in their name. Berlin stressed that the West's derision for Machiavelli is derived from a deep but characteristic misunderstanding of Machiavelli's thesis. As he explains, Machiavelli understands that public life has its own morality. In other words, Machiavelli advocates that a leader who makes him or herself responsible for the lives of others has to place their welfare first. A Machiavellian leader must thus always choose pragmatic morals over idealistic or dogmatic ones. Happily, the West need not make any great sacrifices today, because the state of humankind is far better than it was in 16th century Italy. Although Western populations have been grappling with pessimism recently, a new dawn has broken over the rest of the world. Paradoxically, much of this has happened as a result of the West sharing its wisdom with the rest. Sadly, the West remains remarkably ill-informed about the massive improvement in the human condition. Imagine a world where virtually no human being goes to bed feeling hungry, or where absolute poverty has all but disappeared, where every child gets vaccinated and goes to school, where every home has electricity, where every human being carries some kind of smartphone, giving him or her uninterrupted access to global treasure troves of information that will